everybody, and welcome to another edition of Joe's Rod Shop Podcast. Yeah, we got a good show lined up for today. All right, first off, before we get started, remember, click that like and subscribe button. The show is doing really well. We are hitting some big numbers, and there's some celebration stuff coming pretty soon, which you guys need to listen out to because there's some giveaways coming your way. This episode is brought to you by SA Hot Rods Media. If you're in the car industry, social media is great for your business if you know how to use it. So if you don't know, or if you just don't have the time, talk to us. We can help you get out there. We've now also started, if you guys are a shop and you've just finished a big project and you want the world to know about your project, because there's no motor shows at the moment. So you want to get that exposure and stuff out there. Drop us a line and we can help you give you guys the proper exposure and get your cars and stuff out. Check out there is some new cars coming onto SA Hot Rods Media pretty soon. Some great builds that's just been done. The Rod Shop TV show is doing seriously well. Most of the slots have been taken. We're actually adding some episodes now because of the response. There is still a few openings here and there. So if you want to get your shop onto the TV show, give us a call. Go to our website, sahotrods.com. Just fill in one of the forms there and send us a mail and tell us that you want to be on the show and who you are and what your shop does. All right. So last week we spoke to Ross from Cape Cobra Hire. Now, I've said in the past, I was never a big fan of Cobras, but they've really started growing on me. And it's a great thing because basically some of the biggest brands in Cobra building sit in South Africa. So we've got Backdraft, we've got Super Performance. And of course, there has been major changes and stuff with the cars. But now, I heard about Marsh. Now, when I heard who's involved and what's going on there, I'm like, I got to get this guy on the show. Like, seriously, I need to find out as much as humanly possible. So without any further ado, let me introduce you guys to Marsh. And we are talking to Marsh. Thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Thank you, Joe. Nice to be on the show.
Yeah. Now, last week we spoke to Ross from Cape Cobra. And I mean, he's actually one of the guys that started leading me towards you. Now, you guys are busy with a new Cobra for South Africa. Can you tell us how did the whole thing actually come to be?
Yeah, so Ross and I were talking from early days before I started looking at buying my own, as they call it, the stock from all these guys in and around South Africa. And I eventually came across a unit, and as the saying goes, your emotions get ahead of your mind. And I bought this thing. When it arrived home, I realized instantly I'd made myself a really bad purchase. The quality of the welds, the chassis, and the list can continue. Bodywork with more fill in it than you'd like to know about. Anyway, so I then set about looking at what my options were. I visited various of the South African manufacturers that sell to public. And I very quickly realized that there is a major shortage, specifically in our shores, of a quality build vehicle where precision and quality is ultimately on the forefront of the design. It's not just buy a quick, cheap kit and good luck, goodbye. I hope you managed to put it together. I want something that is that's got quality, that's got attention to detail, which speaks to my architectural background. And yeah, so that's where we are. And from there, it led from one thing to the next.
Now, we've had obviously a small discussion about this. You wanted to take it one step further, not focus it. I mean, originally it was the Jag suspension, which I can't stand. And then obviously the guys have moved over to BMW and this type of stuff, but you wanted to go one step further, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 100%. So the Jag has its place, and the E36 BMW still has its place. The problem with those parts is they're becoming pretty old and used, and you can't just go to BMW and say I want a low control arm for a front suspension, for example. You you've got to wait for it to come from overseas and the cost becomes quite high. Yeah, there are aftermarket parts you can buy, but that's not always ideal. So we've looked at it from a different perspective, and we've said, look, we want a fresh package. Our ultimate aim is car body, obviously without the person in it. We want a vehicle that's under 1,000 kilograms mass, which is something 300-400 kilograms less than what the average Cobra actually weighs these days. So with that said and done, we looked at options for aluminium suspension that is still available. OEM, for a specific reason, it can be exported. So yeah, and you know, obviously it comes with fresher vehicles, really good technology on board in terms of the drivability of the vehicle, and that sort of led to the next thing where we have to relook at the chassis design, how that works, and we have like a 3-piece chassis that's going to attach itself to the drivetrain, and it's specifically made up of we call it the monocoque, and we is myself and you know him, Jean Ferry, who was quite involved with the GT40s back in the day. And I approached him and I said to him, look, I want a world-class chassis, and I want a chassis that is going to eat up the competition that's out there on racetrack, etc. And we've come up with this concept where there'll be a central monocoque, which where you essentially sit in. It's the tub that you sit in. Monocoque I say loosely because, as you know, monocoque is body and all. This is a Roadster that doesn't really come, but it's essentially a central tub that you have, and that's going to be made out of a high-grade aluminium that will be aircraft certified welded, and then it's going to have a front clip which clips onto the front of the vehicle, which will house the engine, the front suspension, the steering, the you know, all those paraphernalias, and then the back clip will have the rear suspension. So it's, for example, if you put a Coyote engine in, which is what I'm doing for our prototype, that engine's too big to come out of the bodywork of the car. So how do you solve the problem? You just drop it out the bottom. We've now got the option of unbolting the front clip, and everything loads from underneath, like you did, and like you can do in a lot of modern day cars to this day. So well, the technology and the way we're going about it is extremely different to what happens.
Well, talking from a technology, when guys sit and they go, oh, I'm upgrading suspension. I mean, I'm talking from a hot rod perspective, even. When guys go, oh, I'm upgrading the suspension to Jaguar. To me, that's like, yeah, not really. That's still 60 years old, you know? Yeah. And then they go, oh, we go BMW, you know, E36 or E46. And you're like, yeah, it's still 20, 30 years old, you know? That's not really moving forward. And the way that you guys are going for, where it makes a lot of sense with the 3 pieces, which means your sections is more interchangeable than anything else, which obviously cuts down on production quite a bit. Because that means that if deciding whether you're going Coyote, old 350, 302, or you're going LS, that's just the front clip section that you guys are interchanging the whole time.
Quite right. And we're looking at being future ready. The world is already saying no to big, fat, thirsty, blood, you know, petrol-sucking V8 engines. They're saying EV is going to become a thing of the future. And even though it's, you know, as petrol heads, and I speak as a person that loves vehicles, loves the sound of a roaring V8 engine, don't we all? It will get to a point where petrol motors are no longer allowed to come into certain countries. Then what do? You look at your hubs, you look at your clips, and you say, we need to make a change to suit this particular motor type, that particular battery type. Boom. You don't have to redesign the entire vehicle. You're designing small components.
You're small in component. But with that said, I mean, that takes us through a completely different rabbit hole. I mean, I've had guys from EV on the show where we've spoken about it in the UK and this type of stuff. And like petrol heads, like you say, we're all jumping on sound of the V8 and stuff. But when I heard that, what was that Mark E that Ken Block drove, that thing just sounds angry. I mean, that is such a serious, and it kind of turns your head and you go, oh, okay, this it sounds like a jet engine. And it's like, that could be cool. I wanted to ask you, do you think we're still very far away from that? I mean, I know there's guys in South Africa who's busy with the EV. And I mean, I would like to hear more about it and stuff as well. I've got projects going on that I'd like to get involved with EV. So do you think we're getting there?
I still think there's always going to be the place for the petrol engine and diesel engine. But having said that, you mentioned Ross earlier. He approached me last week and he said to me, look, what can I do for him? He's got clients that's sitting in Canada, and they are looking for technology vehicles that are going to meet their needs. So there's certain countries where that need is already presented itself. You can't bring in heavy cars. So I don't think we're years and years and years away. But again, if you don't plan for the future, you can build something now that you throw a lot of time, effort, and money in, and in 3-4 years from now, it's obsolete. So the whole package that we're creating is something that's going to be future-proof, future-ready. For example, the exhaust pipes. Cobras have these big fancy side pipes that come out of it. There's certain countries that do not allow that, and you need the pipes to exit out the back. Now, there's certain locally made Cobras where that's just not physically possible. The side pipes actually bang into the side of the chassis, and the tailpipes just cannot pass through the bottom. So this design is even taking that into account, where the side pipes can be substituted for tailpipes, and there's no changes to the body. It's just how you route your piping.
I've burnt myself on one of those in the past on side pipes.
They call them the snake bites. So I think the EV is definitely future, and I think we'd be absolutely ignorant to, this is my opinion, to ignore the future prospects of EV. A silent Cobra, or a less that real TikTok of the V8 is going to be something that's going to be weird. But as you say, the technology is growing to such an extent, at such a rate of knots, that in 3-4 years from now, you might find EV engines, motors that will do more for the petrol head than the petrol engine itself. But that remains to be seen, I suspect. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, where are you guys in the process at the moment? How far have you guys gone, and when can we see the first car?
Yeah. So quite funny you asked the question. I was actually at the facility earlier today. So essentially, we've got the front and back suspension all mocked up. The chassis itself has already been mocked up in plywood to look at ergonomics in terms of spatial space. It goes without saying that this car will be the lowest vehicle you sit in. It's going to have one of the biggest cockpits, if not the biggest cockpit of all Cobras, because of the way the chassis is being designed. There's no fancy tubes running down it. It's all just folded aluminium and that sort of thing. We're hoping by the end of the year to have a vehicle that is going to be, sorry, did I say November, December? That's going to be a rolling vehicle that we can start. And even if the whole body's not on it, if all goes to plan, it will be something you can put on a road or on a racetrack and actually go and test it out. So it's not too far. We've been in this process for about a year already. And these things don't, you're reinventing the wheel essentially. So it's not like we're not sitting with a Cobra dissecting it and saying, oh, we must just get to that. We've ignored all that. And we're saying, well, both Jean and myself have had experience in building Cobras, and we know what we don't want, and we certainly know what we do want. And as a result of that, there's a lot of detailing that is taking place. Like I said, just the whole concept of you buying a car and you want a big block or a Coyote that's got a large wide heads. Now suddenly you're saying, well, it's fine to put the engine and then the body on top of it, but if you cook that motor in 6 years' time, they're going to remove the entire body from the car to get to the engine. In this case, like I said before, you just drop it out the bottom and boom,
exactly.
Half an hour later the engine's on the floor.
With the way you guys are doing it as well, it makes, like I said, it makes more sense, because I mean, basically your shell is just a shell. It's not part of the car anymore. You've got the whole bottom structure that basically runs on its own. It's got everything in it. It's just the Cobra shape that goes over it that fits in.
Yeah, I'm busy building a KCC, the old Kit Car Center, Cobra for a client of mine, and together with that, two very similar units from a different manufacturer. And I'm sitting with a car where we spent almost 50,000 Rand on paint. And now we're trying to get headers in there and trying to tune this and tune that. And you can't drive the vehicle until the body's on. And that's the common problem with these Cobras as we know them today. So
but
the
you've got
idea
no
would be
space to work either. Yeah.
Correct. So now the idea is you're going to sit in a situation where you're going to have the chassis over everything. The body sits on a shelf somewhere. It gets sprayed in the 12th hour. You're going to have inspection panels all over the show and the chassis where you can get to starter motors. You can remove covers so that you can get spark plugs in and out and that sort of thing. And you can actually drive this car, set the suspension up. You can set it, you can go to town. And then in the 12th hour, you hang the curtains in the building. You know, the last thing you do when you build a house is you lay the carpets. And to us, the body and the interior must be that last thing you put in and put on. And by then, you know, everything's done. You've bled brakes, you've tested fuel systems, there's no water leaks. Everything, all systems have been checked. You're not, oh, there's an oil leak, where's it? Now you've got to look underneath the car.
Yeah.
And the leaks at the top, but the body's on top of it. You don't have any of that problem.
If you have space, you can have 3 bodies in different colors, you know, and you can just decide which one you want to swap into. But knowing John, I mean, for the guys that don't know, I mean, he's been on the show. He's behind the CAV, which Sterling Moss said is the best GT40 that's ever been built. He's behind the V8 Beetle. I've been there, and I've said his work is probably some of the best engineering I've ever seen in my life. The attention to detail that you know, he brings into a build like this is absolutely phenomenal. And saying what you said, where when the body comes out, you've got access to it. I can imagine how you will see the brake lines running absolutely perfect. You will see everything has a proper place labeled, plaqued in the right place where it's supposed to be, which is what you want. There are things worse, and as especially the problem with these older AC Cobras, especially the ones that the guys built at home back in the day, is that body comes off, man. Oh, it's scary what sits underneath those things sometimes. How the wiring and everything was done.
100%, and I think that's exactly what sparked my appetite for a totally fresh approach. Is that I've always said that Cobras are their beauty skin deep. There's a meridian of problems underneath that beautiful body, and that body's hiding away bad welds, poor brake lines, used suspension parts, and the list can go on and on. And I don't want to really go down that road. And the beauty skin deep. And now you get a guy that buys a starter kit from Mr. X, and he puts himself in that thing, and he's not mechanically minded. He's essentially put himself into something pretty dangerous. And as we know, these things don't come with fancy airbags and ABS brakes and EPD and all sorts of stuff. So the integrity of the car is the structural part of it. And, you know, I always say to my clients, you know what, we're going to build the car right. And if you don't have money at the end of the job for a beautiful spray job, you drive it in primer for the first 6 months until you've got money, because that's irrelevant. The beauty is irrelevant. It's the integral part of it, the way it handles, the way it stops, the way it steers, you know, and that sort of vibe. So that's exactly the routes we've got. You talk about brake lines that are routed and seen. Our brake lines are going to be routed, but you will not see them.
Yeah.
You're going to look underneath the car. I was underneath an M3 Beamer on the weekend. It was in our workshop, and all you have is skid pans underneath the car. That's all you're going to see on our car. You're just going to see skid pans. Yeah. You're not going to see a pipe. You're not going to see a wire. You're not going to see a hose. You're not going to see anything. Yeah, admittedly, obviously, in the wheel wells, you might see the flexible hoses going to the brake pipes. But we don't want to see that stuff. These cars are too low to the ground to afford the risk of it, you know, going over a speed up and it crushes the brake line. I ironically have a Cobra in my workshop where the first time we put it on a hoist, the fuel pipe actually got compromised because it was right at a jacking point. So those things have to be weeded out, you know.
Oh, please! I've climbed underneath a hot rod, and a guy had the main power line and the fuel line cable tied together, running all the way down the car. I'm like, it's the best idea I've ever seen in my life.
Evil stuff.
But so in the process now, if guys want to get hold of you, if you want to find out, can guys place orders? Can they come see you? Can they come talk to you about the whole process so far?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. We have a Facebook page. Our website is I was with the
I'll
web
link
designer
everything up.
today.
Yeah.
That will be live and well in the next 2-3 weeks, and there will be contact us feature on that. Facebook Marsh Roadsters is on Facebook. My contact numbers are on there. I'm busy talking to a chap now who he was in Angola. He'd returned to South Africa. He's put his first order in for these cars as soon as the first one's ready. He's taking one. So much so that he's spending time in our workshop. He comes in every now and then when he has time, and he even helped us laminate a body recently. He's just eager to be part of the process. And to me, this is the thing that I want to do, is that, you know, I always say, you know, you can meet the biggest idiots on earth, but when you meet petrol heads and you have a common connection, you become friends and brothers at the end of the day. And that's ultimately what we're wanting to do, is we want you involved in the process. I've got 2 clients who are sitting in the UAE at this point in time, and I've never met them, but we feel like we're part of a brotherhood because of the way we try to engage with our customers. And yeah, I suppose everybody will say they work that way. You're not a number, you're an individual. This is your dream, this is your passion. You want a Cobra, and we're going to give you a world-class Cobra. And I'll be honest to say, I don't think there's going to be many, if any, in the world today that's going to come close to the build quality of these vehicles. There's just no 2 ways about it. You mentioned John earlier about his Fiat Stealth Beetle. He tells me the story of when this vehicle went, they exported it as a temporary export to Germany, and he sent it to the TUV in Germany. I don't know if you know the story. And for those listening, essentially TUV, German TUV, is of the strictest in the world. German TUV says thumbs up, you're going to get your approval anywhere in the world. And these guys could not believe that the vehicle that they were inspecting was actually a low volume vehicle. They said they have only seen that kind of quality from high volume mass produced vehicles in big factories like BMW, Toyota, and that sort of thing. And they just couldn't believe what they're seeing. And that is where we want to go. We want to put this thing on car shows, showroom floors, and people, you want to put mirrors underneath it because you're proud of it. Our first concept car is actually going to have the old-fashioned clamshell where the front and the back are actually going to lift up. Not because that's how Cobras are, because we want to show you, the public, what is hidden away underneath the bodywork, because we're proud of it. We're not trying to hide it away. So we're going to have these clamshells that open up, and we can showcase the engineering that sits underneath the vehicle, which is ultimately what, as I said before, it's the backbone of this car.
No, definitely. So I can't wait to see this thing. It sounds extremely exciting. And actually, like I said, I love the fact that something like this is coming out of South Africa. I mean, I love the fact that we're taking that old, and we're bringing not just the new but you're going all the way through, to the other end, to something that no one's ever seen before. And I honestly, I think this is something you can take off worldwide. If I look at what the response, like the GT40s and this type of stuff is, and I know the response that AC Cobras have worldwide, but I don't think anyone's ever seen anything like this. This is going to be something crazy. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, thank you. And I think we feel the same. And it's passion is driving this. It's not the pursuit for money. It's passion. It's a childhood dream to own a car shop, to put cars together. And this is something that I'm part of the design. I'm not just I'm not copywriting somebody else's design, which has happened all over different platforms, where they either copy the original or they copy a modern contemporary, and you've got, I'm not going to mention brand names, but you've got all these lookalikes. Unless you see an engine plate or a manufacturer's plate, you don't know which chassis you're looking at, whether it's A, B, or C. There's various people who have copied. We're not even going down that road of looking to see what others are doing or what they've done. We're saying, as I said before, it's a fresh approach. It's
basically just throw the box out and start new. Yeah.
Not even thinking outside the box, just kicking it under the table and just forgetting it even is there and just start all over again. because at the end of the day, you know, passion and excellence is what I really, there's many things I've made in my life where, you know, I'm never happy with it. And that's where Jean and I are talking and saying, you know, we're constantly going to develop this thing. So there'll be a Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3. And as you go on with these things, the quality and the detailing will just get better and better and better over time, which is what everybody does in the automotive world. They progress with their design. We don't want to come in with something that we feel is good or it's great, and just be happy and what's the word, complacent and say, well, yeah, that's great. But we want to continuously be on the edge of driving the quality, like you said, world class. I'm talking to people in America at the moment for agencies there. As I said, Ross is going to be helping us with you know, all his clients that come from overseas and test drive his rental Cobras. He's going to have one of our cars in his fleet, and then the people can actually drive it, and he will then be a marketing agent, you know, into the world. You're going to have people from all over the country, Poland, everywhere, coming and saying, oh, I want one, and you can work through Ross, or you can come to us. And then I'm talking to people in New Zealand, in the Far East. So we are busy networking as we speak, to get these reputable agencies out there that will represent us on the international playing field. And obviously we're going to be local too. If you've got the appetite for this kind of vehicle, well, come talk to us, and we go from there.
So thank you so much for being on the show. Like I said, I can't wait. I can't wait to see this thing. It's going to be absolutely crazy. And like I said, you've got the right formula. You've got the right guys behind you. You've got the right guys involved with this to make this something the world's never seen before. But thank you so much for being on the show. I'm going to link everything up so all the guys can get hold of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, man.
Thanks for having me, John. Much appreciated.
Okay, cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye.